told the story, right? It's just kind of be there. The whole idea of inbound selling is to adjust your processes based on where your buyer is and what your buyer is interested in.
Hey everybody, this is Morgan J. Ingram here, host of the SDR Chronicles, bringing you motivational tactics and tips for your sales development career, and also for your entrepreneurial career, as sales development is the foundation and mantra of how you really seek success throughout your entire life. So without any further ado, I have here a special guest. We've met before, talked multiple times, Jen Spencer. She is now the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at SmartBug Media. Before, she was at Allbound with the same exact title. She's also done podcasts. She does nonprofits. She's working hard, guys. She knows what she's talking about. So the topic of the day is, how do SDRs leverage inbound selling and also marketing content to see success? So without any further ado, I'm going to let Jen introduce herself and tell us why she's fired about this topic today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. This is so great. So yeah, I'm over at SmartBug Media, and we are an intelligent inbound marketing agency. And the reason why we say intelligent inbound is because a lot of people think about inbound marketing as being like, you're going to create content and then people are going to come to your site and they're going to fill out a form and they're going to want to give you all their money. And we just know that's just not the way that it all happens, or at least you can't really scale a company that way. So intelligent inbound means enabling sales development. It means, customer success. It means a lot more than just like what you think of as strictly inbound marketing. But so I'm really excited because I think that there's a lot of little hidden little gems in what we're doing from an inbound marketing perspective that a lot of sales development representatives and leaders should be jumping on, and they could start actually booking a lot more meetings if they start paying attention to what's happening on the inbound marketing side.
Yeah, no, I love that, the intelligence inbound. So tell us a little bit more about, because I'm actually curious as well, how did you get into the sales portion when your background is heavily into marketing?
Sure. That's a good question. I think I'm just a natural sort of sales focused person in general. I think back to my roots, and I started my career as a high school English and theater arts teacher. Okay. And that is the biggest sales job ever. Like, you are selling, you're selling Chaucer to a teenage boy who has no desire to read Chaucer. So I think that's where it all kind of starts, where you think about, okay, what's my goal? My goal is I want someone to buy into this, and I know it's going to help them in these ways. And so let me go backwards and think about what kind of a story, what do I need to architect in order to get someone there? And then when I went to nonprofit professional theater, that was, we were doing marketing, right? And we were trying to sell tickets, but we lived and breathed by our daily ticket sales numbers every morning. This was before, you could just jump on an app and see what your sales revenue was. And it was before online buying. So every morning at 8 a.m., I would just wait for that ticket report. And honestly, if we didn't hit our numbers, people lost their jobs. So it was pretty severe. And so I just kind of had that ingrained in me. And I don't know, just kind of, it just, really, really sort of flowed, being a very revenue focused marketer. I like to sell things that I love.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You shouldn't sell something that you don't love, guys. Don't do that. So actually have passion around it. That's crazy that you were a teacher though. That is crazy. Yeah, no, that's very intriguing. Like, teacher, marketing, and now VP of sales and marketing is a very intriguing journey, to say the least.
Yeah, I use that teaching background in managing people and, any kind of leadership practice. I think about that all the time. Also, the fact that I'm a parent, I think it helps. I pull on those skills often. There's been times I've been in a sales scenario and I'm like, I remember from this parenting book I read, this is a really good tactic.
Does it work?
It does. I mean,
crazy.
I'm telling you, it's one of those things where it's just the more life experiences you get, you start shaping them, and they help you shape who you are, I
Oh
think.
yeah, 100%.
And, you know, so it all kind of goes together. I don't know.
Yeah, no. Hey, as long as it comes together, that's what matters. Like there's no.
Yeah.
So cool, Jen. So we're talking about inbound selling today. So first off, you talked about intelligence inbound selling. So tell me a little bit more about where you see the future of inbound selling going, and do you see SDRs doing inbound selling in the future at all?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I absolutely do, because I think our customers are going to be demanding it. So as you know, technology allows us to be smarter and be more aware. As our buyers are more aware of what's kind of out there and how much control that they have. And in some verticals, they realize this more than others, right? Like, seriously, God forbid anyone who tries to send me a cold email that's not really, really relevant, because I know too much, right?
Well, I have a question before you go any deeper.
Yeah.
How many emails do you get a day, like cold emails?
You know, it's not as bad as when I was selling software, when I was running sales and marketing for a software company. That was like multiple times a day. This is like a couple times a week probably. But what kills me is, you know, like, for example, there was an event I was speaking at, and my name, you know, my name was on the list, the registration list. And so I've just been inundated with phone calls, and my cell phone was on it too, phone calls and emails. And I'm like, you guys, I am not a qualified lead for you, like, at all. Like, I'm not your ideal customer profile. I run sales and marketing at a marketing agency. Like, this is not a fit. Like,
yes, I definitely want to like dive into that now. Like, I'm fired up because this is something I talked about the other day, and it made me super agitated because, you know, I'm in a new role now. For most of you guys know, with JBarrows, I'm doing sales training and sales consulting. And so pretty much like there's not much we're really going to buy at the end of the day. And I don't have a team of people that I'm going to buy stuff for. And so I was at Dreamforce, and, you know, I went to Boost because I wanted to check out products and solutions, and they scanned me. And most of the people that I got scanned from, I didn't really have a conversation with them. So they were like, hey, like, Morgan, we missed you. Or like, hey, Morgan, like, great talking to you. And I was like, we didn't have a conversation. Like, what do you mean? Like, we didn't, like, I don't even know who you are. So yeah, that's inbound selling done wrong. Don't do that, guys. Like, for sure. That's not going to be a good SDR.
And I feel for the SDRs, because they've been given a list and they're told, just, you know, go put these people through your process. So, but I do have some tips for things that they can do. I don't just want to like rip on what they're doing wrong. Okay. So like just some examples of things that I've had success with, or our like past SDR teams have had success with. So, you know, for example, one of our SDRs at Allbound, what he would do is he would find out exactly when we were launching a new like piece of premium content. So something that was going to be super valuable that we knew people were really going to like. We talk about it in sales and marketing meetings so people knew it was coming. And he would literally block off anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes on his calendar right at when that email launched. Because, you know, undoubtedly what was going to happen is people would get that email and then they would start consuming it and then jumping around on the website. And so he knew they were going to have their attention, right? So that's when he was ready to start he was scheduling that time to make phone calls. So we weren't just playing catch up or using that time in that particular point of the day to focus on something else. So that was really, I mean, that's like something that's so easy. It's just find out what time things are going out, things are launching, and then schedule your day around it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely super simple and applicable like across the board.
Absolutely. And then, so what was funny from that was everyone's like, wow, this is great. Like, we just booked a bunch of meetings and we just saved so much time. And one of our reps said, you know, like, whenever someone's like looking on the pricing page, if I catch them and they're looking on our pricing page, like, they're really, really, really interested. And it's a really good time to talk to them. But if I miss the email notification because I've got all this other stuff going on, I really wish it could be like an alarm that would go off in my head. And I'm sitting there like, well, dude, I can't I can't make an alarm go off in your head. But what can I do?
Exactly. Like, I don't know if that's possible.
What can I do? So I was like, I jumped into like my workflows and we're using HubSpot, and I was like, I can send them a text message. So when like a qualified, like a known lead,
Yeah,
that was not been unqualified, right? Disqualified is on the pricing page, then it sends a text message to the account owner saying, hey, Morgan from, blah, blah, blah company, right, is on the pricing page right now. Call him. Here's his number. With the number, all they have to do is like click it and
that's
dial.
awesome. That's the future right there.
Exactly. So until like someone figures out how to make an alarm go off in an SDR's head, that's what we're doing.
I mean, that could happen in the future. You never know. Like I saw a robot doing flips the other day. So like, I'm pretty sure that, we could have SDRs having alarms going off in their heads.
I know. But like the moral of the story, right? It's just kind of be there. The whole idea of inbound selling is to adjust your processes based on where your buyer is and what your buyer is interested in. And it's really hard because we're a very process-driven like department, right? Yeah. And everyone wants to be doing the same exact thing. And you can have some of that, but there's got to be flexibility within your process so you're able to meet the buyer where he or she is, and be there to support that person. I think that's really all it is. That's all inbound sales really is. It's listening more to them and paying attention to what they're doing and the way that they're communicating with you, as opposed to thinking about what you got to check off your list next.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point. And that brings me to my next question, because I think a lot of inbound reps, if they're starting out, is, hey, I got these lists of questions I need to ask. I'm not even paying attention to what the answers are. I'm writing them down. I'm sending them off to the account executive. So talk a little bit more about how can someone use that data that they're receiving to actually leverage to their outreach when they get to an outbound perspective?
So, I mean, the data that they're getting, you should be gathering as much information as possible. And you've got tools that will help you do this, right?
Of course.
About what somebody is interested in. And I think it's about really having good communication with both your sales and your marketing team, because marketing is going to own your website, right? They're going to own your social channels. So if you can identify, okay, a good prospect for us exhibits not just is part of this kind of ideal customer profile, like not just, okay, they work for a company of this size and they've got this title, but these are the types of behaviors that they tend to exhibit, right? If you just look back at like your last, well, depending on your industry, your last like handful of closed business, right? Whether that's 20 or 50 deals, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you look at what was the buying journey that person went on. You'll probably find some trends. You'll find consistencies. You'll see, oh, look, they visited our pricing page at least 2 times, right? Or they followed our, CEO on Twitter, or whatever it is. You'll figure it out. And then from that, you can start being proactive about who you're focusing on and who you want to start to reach out to based off of the behaviors that are kind of coming.
Yeah, no, and that you brought the point of social. So is that a part of the inbound selling process as well for an SDR?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think, our social media presence is an extension of who we are as a person, right? So, so I think it's extremely valuable to be listening, to be exhibiting social listening types of behavior. So you can set up streams inside of a lot of different marketing automation solutions where you can pull lists of here's like let's say you have a certain number of accounts that you're working right now, and you want to social listen for very specific keywords or things that someone might be posting about, from those accounts. So you want to be paying attention to that, because first of all, it'll allow you to jump on any kind of trigger event if there's anything that you can add value to, or there's a way that you can help, but also it'll let you into someone's personality, and it'll give you a sense of who they really are as a person. And so it's interesting. I'm going to digress here a second, but one of the companies I used to work for we created behavioral motivation assessments. So if you're
Okay.
familiar with like DISC assessments,
Like disc assessments. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I'm just I mean, I'm thinking there's a lot of value in understanding what kind of a person someone is. You know, are they like a high D, like super quippy, fire things off all the time, or are they more of a high S, like I want to have all the information,
Right.
I want to, what kind of a person are they? What kind of behaviors do they exhibit? And social's the perfect place to figure all that out.
That's actually a really good point, because you can see what behaviors someone has throughout, it could be LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever you're looking at, to see like what kind of person is this? Because if they're not posting a lot but they're commenting a lot, that's different than someone who's posting a lot and then maybe commenting not that much. So you can kind of gauge on like, how does this person operate like within their own personality, and what do I need to say to make sure I resonate with that person?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you'll be able to see if people are like, yeah, I can tell on looking at someone's social profiles, if someone's like pretty guarded or pretty buttoned up, if they don't exhibit a lot of what seems to be their kind of personality,
Yeah.
right? That will tell you a little bit about their professional kind of demeanor and how they want to communicate. And maybe they're not the person you want to send like a cat gift to.
Yeah, that's true. Because they're going to be like, what is this? How'd you find my address? Or how'd you even know I existed? Like, yeah, there are some people like that. I'm a super open person, but yeah, guys, don't send me a cat gift, guys. That's probably not what I want. Cool. So we talked about inbound selling. We're talking about social, but let's talk about the marketing content. And I think that this can go in multiple directions, because it couldn't just be marketing content. It could be content in general, where you actually go on someone's LinkedIn and look at an article. But first, I want to talk about internal marketing content. What are people missing, and how are they not leveraging that the right way?
Sure. So I used to be like, everyone on the sales team had to read every single piece of marketing content that we created. It was like dictated, right?
They're probably like, no, we don't do that.
Well, and so, no, I mean, it's so funny because honestly, the people who did were really successful.
Of course.
Because they understood what people were consuming. And I also told my SDR team, I'm like, do not ever use the word content when you're talking to a prospect. That word means absolutely nothing to anybody else.
Yeah.
So, so you you have to stop thinking about it as an asset and think about it as,
Right.
as
Would you tell them to call it?
I would say talk about the pain, talk about, if somebody is just read a guide on dealing with a specific issue and they attended a webinar that's around that same issue, then when you reach out to them, ask them how they're working with that issue, right? Don't say, I saw you attended our webinar, or I know you downloaded our guide. I saw you were consuming some of our content. Doesn't really mean anything to that person, right? Because they're probably like, I don't know, like I've read a bunch of things about that, right? Talk to them about the pain that they have. That's part of like being a good inbound salesperson. So but that means you have to know what the content was they were consuming, so you know what the pain was, right?
Exactly.
My plea to the rest of like all of the leaders would be to help your team out and give them some like cliff notes, some like crib sheets on your content, especially if you're really like prolific and you're just like producing a ton of content. So like, here are the top pains that we address in this piece. And then that way you're not making your entire sales team have to consume every little last, thing. Because the truth is, I know this from being a teacher and a mom, they're not going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's actually go back to the teacher standpoint, because I was a student that you probably actually would have hated me as a student. I just was very lethargic towards everything. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get this done. I got stuff done, but I would do it the last minute. And if I didn't do it, I would have some grand excuse that was like some story. So like, I guess, it all panned out. I guess I'm really good at telling a story, but, I would always want to know what the highlight of the chapter was instead of reading the entire chapter, because sometimes if you're like, Great Expectations, great book. I love that book. But some of the chapters are like, why am I reading this chapter? Like, let's get on with the story. So that's like, this is the same thing when someone's reading a case study or they're reading a blog. They're just like, what's the point of this? Like, what do I need to be telling a prospect? I don't want to sit here and read novels all day long, right? So I think you're right. You're right in that perspective that marketing teams and sales teams need to collaborate together to figure out what are the highlights from the content. It's like a Sports Center, like the top 10 highlights. They don't show the games. They just show you, hey, like this is what happened that was really cool. Same thing I think needs to happen with content.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's honestly, like, I think that's marketing's job. So, marketing's not just responsible for driving traffic and generating leads. If those leads don't actually convert, then you were not successful.
Right.
So the marketing team is the one, if they're the ones creating the content, they should be the ones kind of creating that sales enablement bridge to support the sales team. I think it's their job. And I don't think people are doing it. And then, to your point about the highlights, honestly, that's really how we're going to have to start shifting content for our customers in general. We're actually doing a really interesting study right now internally with a reverse funnel approach to blog writing. So, the way that most blogs are written is there's something intriguing. You try to pull someone in, right? And then you're getting to a point through, through your piece of writing.
Right.
And what we're trying is we're doing a test right now where we're reversing that writing funnel, and we're telling people right out of the gate that here's the answer, right? So this was your question, here's the answer, and then here's more to elaborate on. And we're doing a test to see if it converts higher. And my gut says it will. I'll let you know for sure.
Yeah, definitely let me know how that goes. Yeah. I think that's a very intriguing experiment overall. And I think we are coming to the age that when you send someone an email, you got to let them know what's going on. And when I was first starting off in my SDR role, I would send content and be like, yo, this content's fire. Like everyone's going to love it. And then most people would respond to it. But I changed it a little bit and I said, okay, like here's an article. Paragraph number 3 is what you need to pay attention to. And here's why. And more people responded to that because people are moving so fast. They're not going to take time to read from a random stranger. And sometimes if my mom sends me an article, like it takes me a while to get to it, and that's my mom. So it's all these things that I think we have to think about when we're selling and we're reaching out to our prospects.
Absolutely. And I mean, and anytime you can actually really truly personalize something and say, look at this section in particular. I mean, I've had a lot of success as a salesperson myself with like doing a kind of a personalized video, right? Like using Vidyard's, one-to-one personalized video tool and saying, hey, Morgan, I was just watching this video over here, or I was reading this piece and I thought of you because of this. And I wanted to send it over to you. Let me know what you think. I mean, that like people are, they know you took the time, right? And they appreciate it. And even if they maybe don't need or want to do business with you right now, you're more likely to get a response from somebody saying, I appreciate this and this is our situation we're in. And sometimes that's all we want, right? Like it's frustrating when you see people opening your emails, clicking on your links, not responding to you, not picking up the phone. You're just like, what's going on? Why don't
are they just clicking these links in these email for fun? Like what's happening over there?
Why don't they just tell me what they're doing so I can either take you off my list, So sometimes just getting a no from someone is a win.
Yeah, it's a response is always a win. I think the most irritating thing of all time is what you said. Someone's just having a clicking frenzy on your email and you're like, okay, like what's up? Like what are you doing? Like what's going on? So what would be Yeah.
Sorry. No, I was going to say, hopefully they haven't, it's not horrible and they forward it to their entire company to say, look at this.
That has happened. That has happened to some people before. They got super fired up and then they got a response and then they never got a response back. And I was like, they probably are roasting you inside the organization on something bad must happen. So, it happens though. It happens.
It happens. Sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. So what piece of advice do you have for an SDR that may get into a role, right? Or even a sales professional that their marketing content is all over the place. It hasn't been aggregated like we're talking about and their inbound selling process is off. Like, and the leadership's not, they're just like, there's so many things going on. They're not fixing it. Like what can the SDR sales rep do to help themselves?
Sure. So that rep needs to, first of all, understand his or her buyer personas. Right. So hopefully that's been documented for them. But if not, I mean, think about the people that you're talking to and try to put them into certain buckets and what kind of pains they have, right? So if you're selling to, let's say, a sales leader, you know that person is concerned about productivity, efficiency, revenue, hitting targets, right? Okay, so you've got that, idea. Probably like a really quick, like high dominant kind of a person, right? If you're selling to someone in HR, right? So you can start to think about like, start bucketing those people. And then as you are looking at the content that either your company is producing or that you're consuming, because you're setting up Google alerts and you're paying attention on what people are posting on LinkedIn and Twitter, and you're searching for relevant topics that have to do with your solution, you start putting those into some categories. And then you kind of create your own little stash of materials, and even take some time to bullet out, okay, here's the value of this piece, here's the value of this piece, here's the value of that piece. Value, not about how this connects back to you and what you can sell them, but how can you give value to that buyer so that now they trust you. And so now you've kind of opened their eyes and opened their ears, and you can start engaging and having a conversation with them.
No, and that does make a lot of sense. And then from those conversations, you can start building your own really epicenter of really whatever content and whatever messaging you need to have. And then you're going to be the most successful rep. And that could even lead to growth inside the company, because it's like that person took the initiative and they did that, and they got, they're doing more than what they're actually getting paid for, which always leads to some promotion, or always leads to a new opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, a lot of times we kind of wait for someone to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, don't wait for someone to tell you what to do. I mean, become an expert in what you do, become an expert in both your profession as a salesperson, become an expert in your profession, your industry and your vertical, and immerse yourself in that. And you'll know what material makes sense to share with someone. You'll have a better sense of who a good fit for your organization is. I think people just need to spend a little bit more time doing their homework and preparing.
Yeah.
And then, it's just a little bit upfront, and then you'll be way better off in the long run.
Yeah. Come from the teacher, guys. Do your homework.
I wasn't even thinking about that. That's just extra.
So when you were looking at we talked about events, we talked about content, but I actually want to talk about webinars. You probably do a ton of webinars. A lot of companies do webinars, and what happens with most reps is they have one generic message like, "Thanks for attending the webinar. Like, hopefully you enjoyed it. Like, let's set up some time for a demo." That most likely does not work. Now, I've even be honest with you, I've sent emails out like that before, and I don't get as much response as I would like to. I get responses, but I know I could always do better. So I started actually tailoring my messages. But I wanted to hear from your standpoint, how can a rep use a webinar to actually get inside the account and schedule opportunities to really sell into it?
Sure. I think it's going back to what behaviors were exhibited prior and what behaviors were exhibited after as well. And not just think about the webinar as a standalone event. So if it's someone who's already been kind of in your account base that you've been sort of working with, or you've been watching, I guess, and what other things have they been doing? And get your hands on the analytics from the webinar itself. Every single webinar platform will have those analytics. So get your hands on it. If whoever's putting on the webinar is not giving it to you, it's their ask for it, because you'll be able to see, were they actually paying attention? Did they just register for something? They jump on it and then it was like the background of their secondary screen and they weren't actually paying attention. That's going to help you. So get those analytics for sure. And then I think it's really focus on that pain, and whatever the pain was that was being talked about in the webinar, that's what you want to respond to, not the fact that someone attended a webinar. The other thing is ask people for their feedback, right? So you can try saying like, hey, we just did this webinar and it was on this topic. and it's a little different than what we usually do, or because you're in this role where we're trying to get some feedback from people to see how we can improve our webinars. Do you have any feedback for us? People are generally like really interested in sharing their opinion, like their expertise. So that's one way that you can definitely get people talking and start to build a rapport with them.
Yeah, and it goes back to everything. Like at the end of the day, everyone wants to hear themselves talk, or they want to spout off their opinion. Like we all have that. So I think asking for that feedback without an ask, like people will give you like, hey, like this is my thoughts. And if you collect that data of thoughts and you kind of get the same answer, you can use that as your messaging. And that goes another point of just really using inbound selling to leverage your outbound selling. Because I think they're hand in hand. Both of them can work really well together. And I don't think they're two separate things.
Absolutely. Right. I mean, like if you ask somebody for feedback on a webinar and what could have been better about it, and did they get what they wanted, and they say not really, and you respond back and say, well, tell me what, we want to improve this for the future. Tell me what you would have liked to see. Well, I was really expecting to see Okay, interesting. You can start building on that, right? And yeah, I think it's really valuable feedback that you can use for but it means you have to use it. So I'm
of course.
The problem is that a lot of times we ask for those types of things. Then what we do is we then put people back in our process. We put them back in our sequence. We send them the same templated email. So if you actually ask for their feedback, be prepared to do something with it.
Yes. No, okay. You're right. You're completely right with that. Don't be like, ask for the feedback and be like, oh, I got an answer, guys. What's up? Like, no, you got to actually utilize it. As Jen is saying, don't abuse it, guys. Cool. Well, last question here before we kind of wrap things up. When you're looking at someone's social profile or you're looking at another company's marketing content, is there a way that a rep can leverage that as well?
Another company, so like one of their prospects?
So yeah, it's a prospect's company and you're looking at their marketing content.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's their way of speaking. That's a way that there's a conversation that can actually happen. So if you see very particular there's content, there's certain messages that are coming out from that brand, I think it's a big opportunity to definitely engage, particularly so for example, at Allbound, I'll just use a tactical example. At Allbound, we are selling a platform for organizations who sell through channel partners. So you want to pay attention if there's a company and they are announcing a new partner program. Okay, well, this is a time that we need to start engaging with these people, right? They need to know that we have technology to help them. Or maybe it's someone celebrating. Hey, we're celebrating our top 50 partners, and there's an opportunity to show them some love and say this, and point them out and say, hey, you guys, you're the gold standard. This is amazing. This is how organizations should be treating their partners. It's a great way to really get on someone's radar and understand the culture of their organization. Definitely you should be jumping on those as trigger events for sure. And then you can share them as well. And by sharing those items that you think are really important, you're going to be adding that kind of to your sort of arsenal of crafting who you are and what value you bring to your community. Right. But it's also going to make them feel good too, because you're sharing their stuff, and everyone wants their stuff shared.
Everybody wants their stuff shared. 100%. Yeah. So Jen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I know that everyone's going to really have a lot of valuable things to take from this. And the last question that I always ask everyone is, what is the number one piece of advice that you have for SDRs as they enter into their new role?
Oh my gosh. The number one piece of advice I would have is to be a better listener. Just listen. That's probably the biggest misstep that people make. So pay attention to your surroundings and don't just become a robot.
Yeah, no, I agree the same. That's actually my number one piece of advice too. I always tell people just to listen. Like if you listen, like the game changes. You can just find stuff to really actually talk about and not be like, a robot and be like, well, I got to say this and then I got to say this. It's when you listen to game changers, for sure. So Jen, again, thank you so much for hopping on today and being such a wonderful guest. As I always say, guys, keep dialing and I'll see you guys soon.